The Lord gave me something this morning, and I kind of wanted to share it with y'all. It's in Luke 9, verses, well, just Luke 9 and Luke 10, okay? The reason I think this is so important is because when you look at the how Jesus discipled these 12 disciples, then you can kind of see that that we're all a mess, every one of us. And the only way that we can receive the truth and become more like Jesus is through obedience. And so I wanted to share this with you because these two men were the top men of Jesus that he called to pray with him and to see many miracles. And of course, Peter was one of them too, but he's not mentioned right here, right now. But these two men, James and John, were disciples that had some rough edges, just like we have rough edges. So, and they hadn't arrived, and we haven't arrived. So let's just look at this in John 9 and see what God is telling us, okay? Okay. John 9, 46, okay? These two disciples, John and James, they wanted to sit on the left hand and the right hand of Jesus, okay? But they wasn't even ready to sit on the right hand and left hand of Jesus because they had a lot of polishing that needed to be done because they were stones, just like Peter was a stone. But they had to get the rough edges off. Jesus had to get the rough edges off them, just like he has to get the rough edges off us. So I want to share this with you. Then there arose a reasoning among them, which of them should be the greatest. Okay? And Jesus, perceiving the thought of their heart, took a child and set him by him. And he said unto them, Whosoever shall receive this child in my name receiveth me. And whosoever receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. For he that is least among you all shall be the same great. Shall be great. And John answered and said, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and we forbade him, because he followed not us. And Jesus said unto him, Forbid him not, or forbid not, for he that is not against us is for us. Now, see, this is very important, because when you realize that Jesus, that John and James followed Jesus, and the other 10 disciples followed Jesus. Well, for the most part, except Judas. Okay? But they followed Jesus. Okay? So what he's saying is, because someone follows someone else, like a lot of church members are following name brand preachers that have really no food to give them, because they don't really have the truth, because they followed other people, that's followed other people, that's followed other people. So when we follow Jesus, we're following the truth. And the truth sounds a little strange sometimes, because Jesus, he told us on further down, and I'll read it to you. But let me read this one more time. And John answered and said, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and we forbade him, because he followed not us. And Jesus said unto him, Forbid not, for he that is not against us is for us. And it came to pass, when the time was come that he should be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go toward to Jerusalem, and sent messengers before his face, and they went and entered into a village of Samaritans to make ready for him. And they did not receive him, because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem. Now, they didn't receive him because I guess probably in fear, because they didn't want to hang out with him, because Jerusalem, the people in Jerusalem was definitely wanting to kill Jesus. So I guess it was probably fear, and they did not receive him because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem. And when his disciples, James and John, saw, they said, Lord, will thou command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elijah did? But he turned and rebuked them and said, You know not what manner of spirit ye are of. For the Son of Man is not come to destroy lives, but come to save. And they went to another village. Okay, so James and John was upset because these people did not receive Jesus. You know, they wanted to kill him, and if you realize it, you know, God, he was trying to help James and John understand that that he was walking in love. Even though these people didn't love him, he still loved them. So when it says, but he turned and rebuked them and said, Ye know not what manner of spirit you are of. So whenever we are of the spirit that doesn't love those that don't love us, then we've just got into the wrong spirit, which is of the devil, and we're hearing the wrong voice, because the right voice will tell us to walk in love. For the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to come to save. And they went to another village. So whenever we realize that Jesus came to show us how to walk this walk, then it's obvious that that it's not an easy walk, because these people did not like Jesus. They were not nice to him, and they did not receive him. And so just because somebody doesn't receive us doesn't mean that we are supposed to be rude to them, because Corinthians says love is not rude, or so we're not supposed to be rude, and we're just supposed to walk in love. So because the Spirit in us should love those that don't love us. So James and John were being polished and taught how to love the unlovable. And in the four Gospels of the First Testament, you got John, who became Mark. So when you read the book of Mark, that's John Mark. He finally got it together and was able to write what the Lord was telling him to write. So and this is in Acts. You can see where his new name, his surname was Mark. John Mark learned how to walk in love. And so that is what we have to do. We have to learn to walk in love. And a lot of people, they think they have rights. But if you realize that when we take up our cross and follow Jesus, we just lay down our rights, just like Jesus laid down his rights. He was the Son of God, and he could have called 10,000 angels to pull him from the cross. But he laid down his rights all through his life to show us how to walk in love. So I think this is really interesting on this on Luke 9, and how God, these two disciples, which were the two top disciples, had to learn how to walk in love. Okay, Acts 12, verse 12, Acts 12:12 tells us, and when he considered, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. Now this is Jesus' brother, his half-brother, John Mark. So that's Acts 12:12. So that's his half-brother. And James was his half-brother. And you can find that in, I think it's Galatians, but I'll look right quick and see if it's Galatians. But his half-brother was James and John. And, okay, Galatians 1:19. But other of the apostles saw I none save James, the Lord's brother, in other words. So that is important that we know that these two disciples, even though they were raised with Jesus, they were not polished and hadn't arrived, because they wanted to sit on the right hand and the left hand of Jesus, but they hadn't arrived. And if we want to be more like Jesus, we're going to have to walk in love, because that was the whole message of Luke 9, learning how to walk in the right spirit and hearing the right voice. Be blessed.